can we learn about future mountain bike tech from the past? Well, we've got a very special bike that's going to show us some insights on what that future could possibly be. Okay, let's jump back in time. The year is 1991, the Cold War is coming to an end, the World Wide Web is just starting, and Nirvana launched their influential album, Nevermind. In the world of mountain biking, a technological arms race has begun, with the big players investing lots of money to make bikes that are fit for purpose. One of the most unique and iconic bikes was this, the Manitou FS. Visually striking and wildly different from anything else on the market, the bike was designed by Doug Bradbury, a former motocross racer and a newer mountain biker. Let's skip back a little bit later. We're in the late 80s and Doug Bradbury is making his own aluminium frames. It's quite unique. He founds Manitou, and there's lots of unique things that he does. Different hub spacing, different headset sizes. And he makes the first Manitou suspension fork. And it is really unique for the time. It's got 1.5 inches of travel, so a little bit more than some of the others. But key is it's a super light design, and it's favoured by lots of racers. Julie Furtado, one of the legends to be, uses it for her first World Champs win. And then, well, lots and lots of legends come knocking at the door, including John Tomac. It's here that the Manitou FS takes shape. Perhaps it was always Doug's dream to have a full suspension bike. But like many of those moto folks, he seemed to understand that suspension was good for mountain bikes because, well, the wheels can track the terrain. You get better traction, you get better control, and ultimately you have more speed. You have a better bike. This is what the future looked like in the 90s, and it was a really cutting-edge design. The suspension worked really well, and not just down the trail either. It worked across the trail and up the trail, and thanks to innovative construction and material, it was super light. It's as light as some of today's cross-country bikes because it only weighs 24 pounds. As well as the innovative suspension and frame materials, Doug Bradbury also pushed boundaries of what standards were. He tried to push for a different standard of hub spacing, 115 on the front and 145 on the rear. It didn't quite take off, but early Manitou bikes did have this near boost spacing for extra stiffness while reducing weight. Proof of concept? Well, we're not going to race this one, but in the 90s, these bikes were really fast and they won lots and lots of races, including Jürgen Benecke's overall title in 1993. That was in downhill because that's where this bike really took off. With this bike, Manitou really led the way. It was sold under lots of different brand names as well, but it was sold up until 1996. Flash forward into the modern world, and what does it look like? Have we got flying cars? Do we have robots that do almost everything? Well, I mean, almost. But what does the mountain bike world look like? Using my crystal ball, I think I've got a good idea of what's in store for future mountain bikes. Aluminium alloy manufacturing techniques have really charged ahead, so I think it's still hot. Gone are the 2 or 3 axis lathes, now we've got 5 axis lathes. And what we can produce from these machines is truly mind-bending. One thing that seems to have stayed the course for a long time is the rear derailleur. Okay, we've gone up a couple of clicks on the rear cassette, we've lost the front mech, but we've still got something dangling down, ready to be struck by a rock. So I think the future is something that isn't dangling down. This is the Manitou FS MK2. This bike is really something, but how far off were my predictions? This frame is incredible. This front triangle is one-piece machined. So we're not talking about tubes being cut down and welded. We're not talking about machine chunks bonding into aluminium tubes. No, this whole front triangle is one piece. I think that's a machinist's dream. I think it's beyond the realms of where Doug Bradbury thought we could go with machining. It's got carbon fibre inlay, which helps tune that frame stiffness on a custom level. It's incredible. And then there's the rear suspension. They've looked to the past to reimagine a future suspension system. And this is a highly modified Manitou 24-inch Dunit fork, where it's been remachined and got redone internals. But it's a real piece of work. You've got a remachined upper crown here to fit in. You've got remachined lowers, and it actually works too. Up front, you've got a Manitou mattock. That's a really clever trail fork that runs from 110mm of down country travel all the way up to 150mm of trail travel. Then there's the transmission. Gone is the dangling derailleur, replaced by a modern gearbox. Yeah, we've got a gearbox here. This is the Pinion C112 gearbox. So it's a 12-speed gearbox. And no chain. Oh, no. We've got a Gates CDX carbon belt drive. So we've got a tooth system with a belt drive. We've got a tensioner. I mean, it's a truly winter-proof, maybe future-proof transmission. It wasn't just frame materials and suspension that evolved at a rapid rate. No, brakes evolved from those early cantilevers too. And quite quickly, we matured into having disc brakes. And Hayes were one of the early innovators because they'd made brakes, well, for a long time, and they'd made disc brakes for a long time. And these wonderful purple Hayes, a nod back to their early brakes, these purple Hayes edition of the Dominion brakes, which are still winning at the highest level. The wheels have grown from 26-inch up to 29, but it's not just the diameter that's grown. No, the width has grown out much more as well. And the materials have changed. Opposed to aluminium alloys, which were, well, prone to cracking, prone to failing, now we've got carbon, which can offer wonderful ride qualities and being much, much stronger. Whilst the controls have stayed in relatively the same place, the bars have got much, much wider and the stem much, much shorter, but that's to give you more control and more confidence. I think this is a fascinating glimpse into the future. We've got this incredible frame technology here, a completely revolutionary way of making frames. But then we've got this wonderful nod to the past and a nod to where we've come from with these custom decals and this rear suspension setup. But then we've got more attention to detail with this incredible head badge. It's a wonderful melding of the past and the future all together. With frame materials, it feels like aluminium alloy is still at the cutting edge literally with this bike because it's machined. So we've moved from tubes that are cut and then welded to one-piece machining. Will that be in the future again? I think we can't stop where aluminium will go. The fact it can be recycled, the fact it's tough. I feel like there's a future in metal bikes. I mean, there's more innovation on this, but one thing that I think is really good to see is, even in the future, we've got flat pedals. Wow, this bike has blown me away. Not only with the incredible cutting edge technology, but also what future tech just lies just around the corner. I mean, that's my thoughts, but what are your thoughts? What is the future of transmissions? Is it gearboxes? Is it belt drives? And how much suspension do we need? Is it 150mm? Is it 170? Let us know in the comments.